Here's a glitch to instantly teleport your friends to their doom. And this is a noise machine that's gonna drive them crazy. And this is every way to ruin your friendships in Minecraft. Just please don't get banned from whatever server you try these on. And hey, the YouTube wizard bets me that you can't subscribe to the channel before this arrow hits me. So to prove them wrong, launch that sub button down below. It's free and it helps out a ton. All we need is a couple of stacks of signs to drive your friend completely crazy. Or who knows, we might be helping them out. Since if we take after this user, the idea here is placing down a sign on every single block and then just naming what block you placed it on. And to me, this cracks me up. It's like the budget version of the here's what you're looking at mod. Maybe some people find this useful. They just might also find it useful to have usable space inside of their base, but let's just say it's a matter of opinion. And for how simple and cheap this is to set up, I just love how silly it is. It's not like you can use water buckets to destroy all of them either. It's gonna take a while to get rid of them. Stealing your friend's villagers and hiding them away is a good start. But to make that prank even more sinister, then we should also hide away a few parrots too, since these will mimic the sounds of the villagers so that when they're trying to go and excavate their house to find them, they might go a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs is all I'm saying. By this point, you've probably seen this prank of placing a whole bunch of bamboo around your friend's base. And don't get me wrong, that alone is good enough. Just breaking all those bamboo is gonna cause a lot of lag. But what if we want your friend to be extra careful while breaking all that bamboo? Where here, we would put anvils on top of some of the pieces of bamboo, so that as soon as one of them falls a little too close to your friend, they'll get quite the scare, and they'll take the rest of this cleanup a lot slower, giving you a lot more bang for your buck from the prank anyway. I mean, what fun's a practical joke if they can get rid of it so easily? At least by spending 31 iron ingots a pop, we're making them take a second. Copper's the only Minecraft block that oxidizes. And while we've talked about different ways to mess with your friend's copper in the past, now we're gonna mess with their other blocks. This time, they're wooden planks. It could be funny to slowly change out the wooden planks in their build into a darker and darker color until eventually it looks like their whole wooden house is oxidized. But hey, if you start this at the right point of year, then you could have it be done by Halloween, and at that point, you're just helping them decorate. I see that as a nice act. They might disagree, but as long as you store away the original materials, it's hard to get too mad about this one. In real life, it's not uncommon for buildings to sink into the ground slowly over time, and so that's a reality that we're going to be adding to Minecraft. We'll just be doing it in something of a time-lapse. And here, I love the idea of just terraforming a mountain over their base. Now granted, not getting rid of it, but also not making it very visible for us on the surface. But hey, if they wanted to try out an underground base, you're helping them get there. And if you want to really confuse them, you could also rebuild their entire base on top of this new mountain. Everyone knows the most exciting part of a roller coaster is the sudden drop. So to treat your friend with that, and give them quite the prank, what we could do is tuck a few activator rails inside of their minecart roller coaster, so that when they roll over, they'll activate a system to then break out the track from underneath them. It's sure to be more than a little bit surprising. And while you could just have this fall into a different minecart track or something to keep them safe, I will also mention that Dripstone could do the trick as well. But at that point, you're more of a Revengineer than an engineer, and definitely not an Imagineer. I doubt any tracks at Disneyland are going to be doing this anytime soon. Here's how to flip your friend's world completely upside down, literally. We could prank your friend so that when they go back to visit their animal pen, it's completely on the roof. And honestly, I think this looks good enough to just actually have it be the animal pen. It just might be a little tough to breed the new ones. But overall, a harmless prank, and it's good for a laugh. In Bedrock Edition, there's currently a glitch that can let you do some devilish things. By doing this and then having the piston retract, we can instantly teleport your friends to -2 in the world height. So for those of you not playing on Java, I'm sure you could find some kind of good trap to teleport them into. Or really just having them teleport into a nothing room like this is already a shock enough. But if you want to go a little further with it, then use any of the other traps on this list in conjunction with this, it's gonna be quite the surprise. This post says that this might be the dumbest trap they've ever made, but I disagree. I think it's quite smart. Since what happens here is that you go and shoot the center of this target block, and what used to be an inconspicuous target range will then cause this TNT minecart to roll into place, and it'll explode right behind you. So while they might have thought they had time to react to this minecart rolling in, they really had anything but. And I guess that the target range is closed for the day, and the next one, and probably the rest of the time. Here's how to use a nether portal to teleport your friends to their demise. Since the idea here is laid out by Agent X24, is that we rig their nether portal in such a way so that when they go through, they're going to be sharing that cramped space with a couple of things of TNT minecarts and end crystals. Which at that point, that cramped space is going to get a lot less occupied, but it's going to have quite the explosion while it does it. And considering the whole thing's made out of obsidian, it's also not that destructive. Only to the thing you care about destroying, your friend's life bar. And honestly, imagine returning back to your base from the nether highway, just to be greeted by this. In this case, we're going to use a decoy trap to set the real one. So while your friend might think they're being sneaky by jumping over this obvious spiked pit trap, I mean, come on, trapdoors and a tripwire are a dead giveaway. What's actually happening is that they'll jump right over, only to fall into the real trap that reveals from the floor. And while this original design was made before skulk sensors were in the game, I mean, come on, that makes it even easier to do this kind of thing. And I love the idea of making them think that they got away with murder, only for you yourself to get away with theirs. Planting trees around your base can really bring a build together, especially if you design some of them custom. That is, until your friend comes by and decides to break the bottom 2 logs of the tree trunk for a craft. And now, all you got is a bunch of eyesores. Well, to solve that problem, let's teach them a one-time lesson that the Lorax would even approve of. By setting up an observer system like such, we can have it so that when they break the log, the chop gets recognized, and then an explosion takes care of the rest. And better yet, by using TNT minecarts in this way, the detonation gets to near instantaneous levels. So, whichever log they take from you, we can make sure it'll be their last. Having an armor dispenser like this is a big flex, except not when you have this one. Since if your friend were to only take the time to look inside, they'd notice that what actually happens here is that they're coated in lava, which is then next to some hidden waterlogged blocks. Meaning after you use the system, you're going to be quickly encased in obsidian, and that'll suffocate them before they can mine themselves out. And considering that this kind of system is typically used by someone who's new to the world or recently died, the odds of them having a diamond pickaxe fast enough to get themselves out of there is close to 0. Meaning that if they just died, they're probably going to be dying again soon. Here's how to turn your friend's giant piston door into way more of a domino effect. Since by just taking one of the pistons inside of the giant redstone or slime honey block door and turning it around, then all of a sudden, all the slices of the door aren't moving in sync, which can then cause them to stick together and seize up the entire contraption, until eventually you have a cascading effect and the entire door falls apart. I mean, it's their fault for having that fancy of a door for their vault. Having stuff to put inside the vault's already a flex. You don't need to also show off on the door to keep people out. Okay, hear me out. Pufferfish have a lot more going on than you think. Well, sure, most of us might only care about these things for the water-breathing potions we brew. That's not the whole picture. Actually, that's about the only positive they offer up, because the rest of the time, they're a tool for evil. Don't believe me? Well, let's put that small hitbox to use, and I'll show you. By tucking a bunch of these poisonous pests underneath the trap door, we're fully capable of making a sneaky floor weapon. So if you want to keep some of those house guests from going out of line, then just throw a couple of these into the floor plan, and the message will be clear. Few things in Minecraft are truly unbreakable. I mean, even bedrock can be broken in some form, and that's the unbreakable block. But while we might stand a chance of breaking blocks when we stand on steady ground, it's a different story when they're on the move. Through the help of flying machines, it's possible to make a proper working flying cage trap to take your enemies right up to build limit. But what we really should mention here is that by using blocks such as honeycomb that can't be easily mined, they'll be in for a bad time. As you can see, as the blocks keep moving, the break time keeps resetting. So if your foe doesn't have the proper kit to break it down, they'll be stuck on the one-way journey with no hope in sight. Turtle eggs don't seem to do a lot. Like any baby, these things are quite the liability until they grow up, but that might just be our biggest asset. Since these eggs crack under the simplest bit of pressure, we can make an extremely easy trap. Just sneak one of these little guys under a thing of carpet, and then, as soon as any zombie or ne'er-do-well comes by, they'll be met with quite the surprise. One jump and that's it, and they'll start tumbling toward their doom, and you'll have one less hooligan to worry about. And now you don't have to worry about the egg or the fool. So if you got the silk touch on hand, this might just pave the way for the perfect possibility. This trap is completely invisible, since by using the moving piston block, formerly called block 36, we're able to keep falling block entities from going back into solid form, which means that we can keep falling blocks sitting right in place with no collision box. And from there, as soon as the player walks over it, they're just gonna fall through without even noticing what happened. And while the methods for getting block 36 are pretty complex, such as using end crystals in conjunction with pistons, as soon as you find out how to get one of these, the only thing left for you to answer is how do you kill them once they fall through? Because with this design, it's almost a guarantee that they will. If your friend's AFK at a mob farm, then they're practically setting themselves up for disaster. I mean, there's already a steady stream of mobs coming through, so why not take those hostiles that they're taking advantage of and instead redirect them so that they spawn next to the player? After all, one of these farms kill thousands of zombies over time, so it's only fair that the zombies themselves get to settle the score. Tinted glass is a very popular block to use now at mob spawners, which I think is too bad for our regular stained glass, and that's how we're gonna fix it. Since if you use black stained glass in place of their tinted glass, they look visually very similar, except for one key difference, being that the black stained glass actually doesn't stop the light level from coming in. And at that point, they'll be very confused as to why their spawner farm stopped working, since even though it visually looks the same, it's just that little bit of light level that's able to throw the whole thing off. But It's their fault for needing a view in window. If you're falling from a great height, water's the all-star pick for safety, and we can use that idea to our favor. See, if you're looking to get even with someone on the server, this water illusion is a solid candidate to do so. As you'll notice, by making several custom maps with a water design like so, we can make a convincing spot for them to land on. Only once they aim for that puddle, they'll just break their legs on a couple of item frames, and that should be a rude awakening for sure. As of 1.20, chisel bookshelves are the newest container block that we have to play around with. But unlike a chest or a barrel we're able to hover over and see what's inside, these bookshelves have no visual difference between the different items that you place inside. And that's where the prank comes in. Since now we can use all of those enchanted books that your friends stacked up into their enchanted bookshelves, instead fill it up with junk books like Curse of Binding and all that. Now, it's not going to trick them into accidentally putting this on their armor, but there's also no way for them to tell that you played this prank until it's too late. And then we can run off with the many books in the meantime and not have to worry about being caught. Bad traps stick out like a sore thumb, which is why if you see a random pressure plate out in the open, most of us know not to step on it. But that's the whole point of this. You see, we want our victim to expect that it's trapped, break the pressure plate, and then the real trap goes in motion. The item is then sucked up by the hopper minecart, goes into a real hopper, and then a comparator sets off a signal, and the rest is history. Now, while you could be more cruel here by adding in more TNT minecarts, I think this actually could work really well in a rigged desert temple. That, folks, would be a surprise for sure, and one that's likely to leave them with no items to their name. Honey blocks are clearly a useful tool. Whether you want to keep your villagers in place, mobs out of your base, or a flying machine through space, these do the trick just fine. But their sticky qualities can just as easily be turned to the dark side. You see, with the advent of lava cauldrons in 1.17, we can pair these two concepts together and make a particularly sinister trap. Since honey blocks make jumping so difficult, when we throw one of these under a lava cauldron, suddenly the player's no longer able to escape. And with that, this seemingly harmless block becomes one that you gotta look out for. So if you're trying to feel like a Bond villain, this might just be your next interrogation technique. Spawning the Wither makes for a pretty good prank, but it's also pretty destructive, and you don't want it to go around and then destroy your stuff after it destroys your friends. And here's how to get all that same scare without having to do any of the cleanup that's associated with it. All you have to do is act like you're gonna spawn the Wither in the middle of your friend's house, but just make sure that you're placing the soul sand blocks above any non-air block. That could be something like torches, grass, string, carpet, whatever. As long as it's not air, any of those will keep the Wither from actually spawning. Or you could also place down the 3 skulls of the Wither formation first, and then put in the T-shape underneath it. That'll also stop it from spawning, since the game only checks if the skull is one of the last blocks placed, which should give you just the right amount of scarecrow to be able to scare your friends. And hey, if it doesn't work, you can always just break one of those skulls and build it the right way. That's sure to scare them. Your friend's base should be the safest place in their world, which is why we're gonna ruin that. And the most straightforward way of doing this is just to remove the light sources from their base. That way we're able to get plenty of mobs to spawn inside. But if you want even better results for this, you could use those light sources that you stole from their base and use them to light up neighboring caves around their house. That way, any hostile mobs that try to spawn are only going to be able to spawn inside of your friend's house. And that should give them more than a few unwanted visitors. Netherite armor makes it tough to kill your friend, and enchanted netherite makes that job nearly impossible. But the key word there is nearly, since with the help of pointed dripstones, we are able to kill through full netherite. We'll just need to be creative about it. And for this example, we have a fake slime block elevator that actually just serves as the killing chamber. And once they get in the minecart, what's actually going to happen is 3 pointed dripstone is going to take them down, which might seem cruel, but the way that I see it, this is an even better elevator. Instead of taking to the second floor, takes you straight up to heaven. And might I mention, at a record pace. Making a shop on a server is a great way to make profit. But see, where most businesses go wrong is that they sell products that actually work. And that's how we're going to increase our profit margin. Since by having a weapons, armor, or tool shop where the items are dispensed out to your friends, we can have it so that they have no idea that they're actually buying tools that are almost near broken. At least until it's too late. And to make that armor even better, give it Curse of Binding, and then they'll really be stuck with having to wear it right until its bitter end. But luckily for them, that's coming soon. And the best part is that they can't even salvage the item back in an anvil, since once it's on them, it's on them. Dropping a stalactite through the end portal is an easy trap, but it's too obvious. But if you're willing to break a bit of bedrock, could instead put that same concept to use with one of the end gateways. And there it could be a lot more subtle. And might I add, it still works plenty well, being able to instantly kill your friends as soon as they go through. So as long as you nudge them to go first, they can teleport through, tank the hit, and then leave all of their stuff for us to pick up as soon as we follow suit. Pranking your friends is a rite of passage on a multiplayer server. And hey, we're plenty guilty of that as well. So to give them a run for their money, why don't we hit them where it hurts? Their diamonds. See, by using a few item frames and map art, we can create a pretty convincing diamond ore. Or at least convincing from this side, since when you walk around to the other end, it's proven fake. And by that logic, we can make just about any decoy block in the game that we dream of, which offers quite the surprise if you ask me. At first glance, nothing looked dangerous about this. And really that's true. Nothing looks dangerous about it, but the the only reason is because we used a texture pack to switch out the TNT texture to look like other blocks. And now when your friend comes over and puts on the texture pack to play some mini games, they're not going to be aware that all the grass blocks that they're standing on top of is actual TNT. And if you think this is too crazy to work, Planet Lord used this on Wreckcrap, and Wreckcrap's one of the most skeptical people that I know. So what your friend thinks is just some regular stone and spruce blocks, as soon as you flip the switch or ignite it with flint and steel, they're gonna be a little confused when that stone starts hissing. While your friend might think they're safe when they disconnect from the server, the truth is anything but that, since now we know exactly where they're gonna spawn back in when they log into the world. And from there, we can be as cruel as we like. But for me personally, I think the obvious solution here is to encase them in an obsidian box and then fill it up with lava. They'll be so taken aback that there's barely any brain power left to react with. But even if they could, obsidian takes a long time to mine, and lava's a quick killer. So, good luck. This is the deadliest cave in Minecraft, and even though it looks safe from above, as soon as our player gets into position, then what happens here is that the floor comes out from under them, and because we broke bedrock, the only choice they'll have is to fall right into the void. And then if we were to seal it up with a block with a high mining time, like netherite in this example, it's not possible to come back up, even if you have an elytra. And as long as it's sealed flush with the bedrock as well, they can't even place any blocks in trying to support themselves, meaning they've only got one choice out of here, and it's not a pretty one. This is a diamond, and this is a diamond. Emphasis on the italics. Since by going through your friend's valuables and renaming them to even just the same name, they'll no longer be able to stack up the same way. And so if they have a full inventory, this can get annoying pretty quick. Especially since the only way to undo this prank is to take their new diamonds, craft them into diamond blocks, and then uncraft those back into diamonds. Giving you a prank where even if you know how it works and how to solve it, it's still gonna take some of their time to clean it up. Here's how to teleport your friend to the end without ever breaking bedrock. Since thanks to a glitch with the end portal, if you were to push your friend with a regular piston while they're standing underneath the portal, it'll teleport them to these exact coordinates in the end. And more often than not, that doesn't mean the main end island, but rather, you're more likely to end up in the void. And as Brandy and Mr. Cube show off, you can even refine this system to make it a whole lot faster. Just make sure the player you're trying to kill isn't Wreckcrap, otherwise it's never gonna work out. Next time your friend goes underground, they should make sure to look at the ceiling, since if they're not careful, they could be standing under this trap, where, once activated, breaks the sign and then drops thousands of gravel on top of the player, which if you stack it high enough, it's gonna be tough for them to escape before they die, even if they were to have an instant mine shovel. Oh, and not to mention that the same setup could cause a lot of client-side lag, which is annoying, but it adds to the effectiveness. If they're slow to react, they're gonna be slow to escape too. Lodestones already feel like a waste, costing one netherite ingot just to craft one of these, but here's how to make it an even bigger waste. By programming a compass to a lodestone somewhere in the world, then we could place it in a chest at your friend's base and promise them awesome loot if they choose to follow it. Only when they actually end up traveling the thousands of blocks to get next to this, when they arrive, all they're gonna find is the lodestone and nothing else. And while there is a piece of netherite inside of that, it's not like it's usable. And on top of the insult to injury, they're gonna have to travel all those thousands of blocks right back home completely empty-handed. Lag machines do what they're supposed to. They cause everyone to lag. But what if you don't want to be a part of the lagging bunch? I mean, after all, it's less fun to appreciate if you're also suffering along with your friends. Well, luckily, the way that we solve this so that we're not suffering, only your friends are, is to use something like non-stackable items. And when we throw down all of these non-stackable items like cake onto the floor, usually that would cause everyone around it to lag. It's rendering a lot of entities. But using a client-side mod like Tweakaroo, we can disable item entity rendering entirely. And there you go. Now we won't be lagging, and your friend who doesn't have the mod surely will. I'll be honest, I'm not the best at PvP, so if it comes down to it, I'd like to put the odds in my favor. And there's no better way of doing that than with this axe. By mixing together a sharpness 5 netherite axe, strength 2, and a critical hit, we're able to deal 27 points of damage in a single blow. And folks, to put that into perspective, the average player only has 20 hit points of health to their health bar. So this is overkill and then some. And even if they're wearing protection 4 armor, we only need to hit them 1 or 2 more times before they're completely leveled out. And speaking for me personally, it's a lot easier for me to understand how to brew up a strength 2 potion than to ever learn how to properly PvP anyway. And if you don't want to be the one holding the netherite axe when you kill your friend, no worries, get a zombie to do it for you. Since a zombie that's holding a sharpness 5 netherite axe is fully capable of one-shotting an unarmored player. And trust me, it's pretty scary to have to deal with one of these. Even if you do have armor, they don't have nearly as much of an attack cooldown. So get too close and the rest is history. Another data pack that you can use to trick your friends is this one from Vanilla Tweaks. Since while the warden itself would be pretty loud, I mean they have an attack called a sonic boom that kind of gives it away. If you take a name tag and rename it to Silence Me, then when you add that on top of the warden, it'll no longer make another noise for your friends to hear. disappear. And now the only thing that'll tip them off to the warden nearby is the darkness effect, which is definitely noticeable, but it's also definitely confusing. So I think the prank still works either way, especially if you manage to tuck one of these inside your friend's house. Then by the time they get the darkness effect and start wondering what's happening, it'll already be too late. Forget using a bow and arrow to kill your friend, since if we were to use a bit of gunpowder and paper, we can make our crossbow even more deadly. Loading up a firework with the max number of firework stars, we can load this into our crossbow and unload a whole bunch of damage into your friend. And if you doubt the effectiveness of this, I'll remind you that fireworks are strong enough to kill the wither, so they should be plenty fine for your friend as well. And hey, at least they'll go out with a light show. Here's how iron helmets can be one of the most annoying items in Minecraft. Since taking a page out of RecRap's book, if we place down 1,000 helmets inside of your friend's base, placing them inside of item frames, armor stands, and every chest that they have, it's gonna take a long time to clean up. For one, helmets aren't stackable, and even the armor stands only stack up to 16, which is itself very annoying. And while it seems like it would cost a lot of iron to do this, that is true, but it's also not like the iron that they're gonna get out of it is very usable. Once you have diamond armor, whoever needs an iron helmet? And the most you can get out of these is just a couple of measly iron nuggets, which is a far cry from the 5 iron ingots that you were spending otherwise. So if you have a proper iron farm and the time to set this up, it's a really effective prank to play on your friends. If you use a Silk Touch pickaxe to break a Skulk Shrieker, then when you place it back down, it won't spawn a warden, which sounds like a downside, but to us, it's the ultimate benefit. Since by following after green and taking a bunch of these Skulk Shriekers and putting them in your friend's base, even if they're not spawning a warden, they're still gonna give off the sound like they do. And we can stack up the volume until eventually we've got up to 247 sounds playing at the same time. And the only reason we stop at 247 is because that's the literal limit for where Minecraft stops playing noises. But believe me, even at that number, that's gonna be more than enough to rupture their headphones. And because of the way that the Skulk sensor gives off a redstone signal, literally every step that they're taking trying to find this, they're just gonna keep setting off that noise, giving you plenty of bang for what should have just been a useless shrieker. If you've ever felt like someone's watching you, then you know it's a creepy concept, and this example should bring out those same feelings. See, as you move around the head, the eyes will track you like so, or at least that's what you'd think, because with some extra depth, the redstone can move along the black background for a scary sight. But even when you do know how they work, it's hard to say they're not effective, or at the very least, unsettling. Okay, so you've probably heard of the Headless Horseman, but what about the Bodiless Steve? See, after placing down some path blocks, we can throw a pig inside a minecart, hop on, and ride into the floor like so, with only our head to poke out of the top of the path, which can either startle your friends or lend to the weirdest game of soccer yet. And whichever option you choose, just make sure not to dismount the pig while you're down there. Otherwise, you'll go from an awkward situation into something a lot more uncomfortable. If you know that your friend plays around on lower render distances, then this is the perfect prank to play on them. All we gotta do is use a fishing rod or a bubble elevator to get them up into the world height, and then recreate skyblock up here in the sky. I guess that part's obvious. So then, when your friend finally wakes up from going AFK, they'll think that they've logged onto an entirely different server. Or at the very least, they'll be very confused on how to get down. And honestly, speaking as someone who likes skyblock, I wouldn't even be that angry if you played this on me. But if you set me up where I couldn't actually build a cobblestone generator, then we'd be having a different conversation. To many in the community, the Aether Portal is something of a white whale to see, and I'm sure many of us were disappointed to see it fail like this when we tried. But with Bedrock, we might have ourselves a solution, or at the very least, a workaround. Apparently, when utilizing waterlogged stairs and blocks like so, we can strategically set up some floating water inside the glowstone frame. And then, even after we break the pistons and stairs, the water will remain inside our new Aether Portal. Just remember, it'll disappear once you reload the world. Here's how to kill your friend with an elytra. The answer comes down to fireworks rockets, but not these ones. Rather, these ones. And while they look ever so similar, there's one key yet deadly difference between them, which is if you were to craft up fireworks rockets using fireworks stars, and visually they look the same. And as long as they don't read the item description, if they try to fly with these fireworks star rockets, it's gonna get pretty deadly pretty fast. And just that initial liftoff is almost enough damage to kill an unarmored player. So if they're spamming rockets to try to escape from your base, this will bring them back down to earth and put them 6 feet under. When you're getting ready to give your friend a tour of your base, we're just gonna have them jump down this redstone trap door into the entrance to your base. I mean, why wouldn't they jump? There's water down there, must be safe. That is, until we push a button while we're down below that sends a redstone signal so that a brown mushroom will get filled up with bone meal and create a roof over the water that they were supposed to land on. I mean, this is basically the same thing that Dream did at the bottom of the ravine in the Manhunt, except way more technical, and reusable too. Just not reusable on the same friend. I doubt they'll be jumping down any other thing things after you pull this on them. After a while of playing with your friends, it can get tough to impress them, but building up a full netherite beacon should do the trick. Though getting all the netherite to make that happen is actually a tough hurdle to cross. So instead, what if we want to make this happen for a fraction of the price? Well, using this method, we can make it seem like we're the richest on the server, when in fact, we're barely cutting it. But hey, as long as they don't snoop around the other side, this should be fairly convincing, and that could earn us the respect that we're looking for. Living in a desert has its benefits, but lush greens just aren't one of them. And seeing as leaves we bring here will desaturate to the biome's color map, our garden looks a little bland, where it would be if it weren't for azaleas. See, when we shear the leaves off an azalea tree and place them down in another biome, they don't change color with the location, meaning we can have the illusion of fresh trees grown right out in the desert. And while your friends wonder why their oak trees look worse than yours, we'll have quite the oasis to see. Lately, it's been a popular idea to use powdered snow buckets with a carpet over top in your drop shafts, since it is true that if you were to drop on powdered snow in this way, you won't take any fall damage. But come on, it's just too easy. You can use that same carpet to cover up a regular block, and they'll be none the wiser. So as long as that drop down is far enough for them to take enough fall damage, this could be a quick way to kill them off. You could even use a hopper underneath the carpet and collect all their stuff for you. Then it's just too easy. Even if you're not able to make the drop shoot deadly in its own way, we could make it into an accessory for murder. And perhaps the most straightforward and effective way of doing this by adding a charged creeper to the enclosed area. That way, when they land at the bottom, they're just gonna hear a hiss, the rest is history. So even if they're safe from the fall, that same safety isn't gonna last for very long. Here's how to make your friend's house a homie. Since most people have windows or openings, they could very easily add some big eyes or a mustache to their build. And it's a lighthearted way to give them a laugh next time that they visit their base. You can even do what we've done in the past where you make the house into a looking eyes illusion, where you stand from this point, the eyes are looking at you here, and walk underneath and they'll still be looking at you. It's a great way to make their build come to life, literally. From this angle, my skin looks fine, but in actuality, we've flipped it around so that my textures for my skin are actually played on my back, which gives you a great way to mess with your friends. And to go one step further and keep up the facade, if you play in third-person mode with F5, then you can navigate while keeping your skin properly oriented. That is, until it's time for the big reveal and your friend thinks they're doing something behind your back, only for you to have been able to see the entire thing all along. When you're designing a trap, nothing ruins the fun quite like an MLG water bucket save. These things are like a Deus Ex Machina. They remove all of the tension from the scene, and they get really boring when they're overused. So, to prevent someone's water bucket from raining on your parade, then why not find some way to soak up the source? And no, I'm not talking about sponges, but rather something a little bit more inconspicuous. You see, by having a half slab flipped like such, it looks just like any other block. But to their surprise, whenever they try to MLG, the water goes right to the bottom, and they'll just hit the floor like regular. So really, if you want to catch a pro, this is the way to go. At first glance, this parkour jump looks impossible, and it basically is. That is, unless you jump at the exact right moment. And while we'll have built the system and know exactly when that moment is, when your friend's chasing after you, they're not going to be privy to it, meaning that they fall into this one block gap and fall right the way down to their death. Which, the death would be bad enough, but they're also going to have to live with the fact that they're not as good at parkour as you. And honestly, I think that's a bigger insult. It's like a lose-lose. If you have a fear of heights, this might make you feel a little uneasy, but don't worry, because the truth is that this hole's no deeper than just having a flat sheet of paper. But the reason that it would trick you to feel that way is because by using flat colors like this black and white, you're not going to see a lot of variety between the textures, which allows us to then make this pattern, which in such a way gives the illusion of it getting deeper and deeper to the center of the hole, even though, as we can clearly tell, that's not the case. This is my super smelter. And with the size of it, you can probably guess that it does a pretty good job of smelting. And you would be right, but don't expect a 100% return. Since the truth of the matter is that with this super smelter, when I'm smelting my friends' items, I do give them their stuff a lot faster than they would have gotten it otherwise. There just might be a few of their items that got siphoned off in the process. Now we're not only getting paid the fee for using our super smelter, but also a few things that maybe got a little bit too overcooked in the process. After all, you wouldn't want to give them bad goods. We'll just hold those into our personal chests. Do not go in this bubble elevator. Since while it seems peaceful from here, the truth is that at the top of the elevator, we can set it up in such a way where your friend's just gonna land in lava when they reach the top. And from there, if we block the exit, there's really no escape for them. But the first question is, how do you put lava on top of a bubble elevator? After all, lava and water are like oil and water. They shouldn't mix. But thanks to a scaffolding placed in the bubble elevator, we can break off the stream from the lava and still use the speed from the bubble elevator to push them right up into the death trap. And the biggest joke of it all is that the water that they need for safety is just out of reach for them. When your friend goes is AFK, that's our turn to bring out the fishing rod. Since with the help of one of these, we're able to bring your friend up way sky high, until after a few attempts, we can actually place them on top of a TNT block like this. Now, right now, that TNT block is a solid ground, but it's not gonna stay that way. Since when we sit on top a few blocks above and aim at them with a flame bow, then as soon as they log back in, we can shoot the block underneath them, and if the fall damage doesn't kill them, the block and TNT falling on top of them should be enough to do the job. Even if they manage to survive this with a water bucket, TNT still does damage even if it doesn't break blocks around it. Meaning even the most prepared of players are still in for a rude awakening when they come back in. Normally a lot of shops like to pop up around spawn. After all, it's where a lot of people spend their time. But where the real money's to be made is in the blue ocean strategy. So all the sharks that spawn fight over the little fish that are over there, turning the water red with violence. We can go off into the distance and set up mini shops in awkward and far out locations that sell little conveniences. Think of these like your 7-Elevens. They're gonna have things like rockets, food, maybe extra ender chests. And then, here's the kicker, because we're selling these so far away from where they're supposed to be, we can charge a bonus on top of that for the extra convenience. After all, folks, time is money, and the only difference is that I can't buy a steak with time, so if I'm able to get my friend's money, I'll take it. When your friend logs onto this server, as far as they know, nothing's changed. At least, nothing's changed yet. But by installing a data pack like this one by Gaming Barn, we're able to morph into different mobs in Minecraft, much like we've been able to do with morph mods in the past. Except this is pure vanilla. Your friend doesn't have to have anything installed on their end. And that's why they'll never expect it when you start to hide in with their cows and sheep. And at that point, you can get as crazy with this as you want. Whether that's hiding in their pig pen and giving them a slap when they come and try to kill you, or running away from them when they try to saddle you up and ride you as a horse. I mean, really, there's over 80 mobs in Minecraft that you could do this with, so the possibility for some great pranks are there. It's just up to you to choose which one. Creeper holes are like laundry. If you have a little bit to do, then it's not a big problem. But let too much of it stack up, and all of a sudden you've got this huge undertaking to go. And so to prevent that from happening, and fill your pockets while you're doing it, you can charge players on the servers a tax for repairing their creeper holes. And when you do this, they really can't blame you for anything that you're doing. I mean, after all, they could have just not had the creeper explode in the first place, but if they then forget to fill it in themselves, then, in my opinion, they should be paying a little something. If not their time, then their assets. And hopefully they'll learn a lesson going forward. And we can all have a much prettier server going as well. This is the deadliest entity in Minecraft, but not by itself. But rather, if you were to get more than 24 of these put into the same spot, then our friend's gonna have to deal with something called entity cramming, which is when the game thinks there's a certain number of mobs in the same spot, to avoid overloading on lag, they'll quickly start applying steady damage to the player. And by placing a honey block near the bottom, we make it even harder for them to escape once they fall in. But hey, at least they won't die alone. Gambling's a crooked business, and really anything you're willing to gamble, you should just assume is lost. But while you and I know that, hopefully your friends don't. And so to teach them about the dangers of it, you can create a fake gambling minigame where you can trick your friends into losing their valuable stuff. So if your friend's stupid enough to put up a netherite sword on the line, then it's their fault when they find out that the game was rigged all along and you were always just gonna be getting it from them. It was more of a donation box than a gambling machine. But hey, they should be happy. Donations are write-offs, gambling isn't. So if anything, you're just helping them on their tax return. This trap might seem dumb, but that's what's so beautiful about it. Since all you have to do to set this up is go next to your friend's portal and then dig a 4x1 hole as deep as you'd like, so that when your friend thinks they're running up to their portal, they're actually just gonna fall into this pit and die on the dripstone. And folks, the dripstone is the key part here, because just by falling onto one of these tiny little spikes, that'll double the damage that you would have taken by just falling onto a regular block. And come on, it worked well enough for Clown Pierce to fall for it. And in my book, that's plenty proof that it's gonna work on any of your other friends as well. If it works for the best, it'll work for the rest. Minecraft Redstone's a beautiful thing, but it's often got an ugly side to it. And it's no secret that a lot of the redstone features that we get used to are built around bugs, or exploits that later get patched out. So if you have a little bit of redstone know-how, you could charge your friend a big fee to go through and clean up their redstone circuitry. Think of it like buying the new iPhone every fall. Is it necessary? No, but can you charge a lot for it? Absolutely. And really, the more glossy things that you add to it, the better. It's all for show, folks. The thing was completely operational before, but it's all on how you market it. When your friend builds a nether portal, then that gives you the perfect opportunity to turn it into a trap. Now, all we have to do is set up a little contraption with redstone like this, using tripwire hooks, some string, and then dispensers that'll break the portal once they go in. That way, their portal still works on the way over there, and then as soon as they go through, it'll be broken on the other end. And if they don't have a flint and steel or a fire charge to get themselves back, they'll be pretty much stuck in one of the worst places to be stuck in. And at that point, the only hope is to find the materials to create a flint and steel from Nether Fortress chests or piglin bartering. And something tells me the flint and steel is the only thing that's more than they bargained for. Killing your friend's pet is an evil prank. That's why we're not going to be the ones to do it. Rather, they will be. Since with a trap like this, we're giving our friend the choice to choose which lever they need to pull to save their pet. So which of these levers do you think is the one that's going to be able to save their pet? Yeah, I thought that one too, but not so much. Since if you really want to be cruel, you could set this up also as a fake system where regardless of which lever they pull, their pet's gonna meet the same fate, to put it lightly. And to be extra cruel, you could also have one of the levers just drop TNT on top of them, so at least they won't be losing their pet, they'll both be going to the same spot. It's just a little further away from here than they thought. For this one, we're taking a page out of Noah's book, except we're doing it a little bit more devilishly. Since we're gonna keep 2 cows for ourselves, we're gonna kill every other cow that we can find within a reasonable part of the world. So then when your friend's desperately needing things like beef and leather, they'll be nowhere to find. And sure, you could go deal with hoglins and such, but really setting up a farm for one of those is a lot more stressful, especially early game. And at that point, we can keep our cows to ourselves, breed them in a secret location, and then sell off any leather-based good and become insanely rich. After all, it's a lot easier to monopolize the market when there's literally no market in sight left to be made. Public goods are good for the public, but not so good for your wallet. So if you're the kind of person who likes to go around building a bunch of farms for the server to use, it would make sense that you took all the upfront risk in building it and all the materials to make it. You should get a little bit of a kickback from it. So if you were to just charge players for using your farms, or even something like the roads that you built within the Nether Highway, then just having a simple toll booth could be all that you need to get all your riches back. Just make sure that you also don't pay to use these farms. Then you'll not be getting rich, you'll just be getting scammed. This one might not be efficient, but it's definitely effective. And if you're willing to play a war of attrition, you could always just steal all of your friends' food and crops. That way they're bound to always be starving, or at the very least they won't be able to regen. If anything, even if they're not going to starve to death through this, it'll make your job with the other ones so much simpler, and it's a good prerequisite at that. All we need is a few spider eyes, and we can make one of the deadliest traps for your friends. Since by brewing up a mix of 3 potions, an instant damage 2 pot, slowness 4, and poison 2, we can cram all of those together in a dispenser, and then use this player detection model using a carpet over a redstone ore, so that when they walk on top, they'll be quickly greeted by death from all directions. And since potions can hurt players even through armor, this might be the simplest way for you to bring your overpowered friends down to their low point. And hey, you can even brew up multiple potions at the same time, so you'll have plenty of chances to get it right. When you're trying to prank your friends, there's few concepts that are as popular as the old switcheroo. And now in Minecraft, we got your main hand and we got your offhand, except which is which can change up pretty easily. Since if we go into the accessibility options tab and then switch it so that our main hand is our left hand, now we'll be confusing anyone who looks at us. Since what they think we're holding in our offhand, we're actually holding in the main hand. And as Rasplin showed off in the SMP, this could be a great way to trick someone in a trade deal. For instance, they think you're gonna throw out something valuable like a diamond, since that's in your traditional main hand, when all that you actually end up throwing out is just a block of dirt. But if you do this, just make sure to keep your actual left hand ready on the controls to move away, because as soon as they realize, they're gonna want to chase after you. Or if you don't want to worry about going to the end for your Monopoly, then it's worth noting that you could also set one up inside of the overworld. Now see, the elytras are the razors, we're gonna sell the razor blades, otherwise known as the rockets. Because once you get yourself a proper sugarcane and creeper farm for the gunpowder, you can easily supply the entire server for months. And they'll also be repeat customers. So as long as you price it just fair enough where they don't want to go and compete and build their own farms, then you could have a couple of people who are set up as dependent on you in the server. And at that point, it doesn't matter how much money they're making, at least some of it's going to be coming back into your pocket. Fear of the dark is pretty common, and fear of the unknown is even scarier, which is why this might be such an ominous sight. See, here we have the illusion of emptiness made up from building 4 walls of unlit black concrete like so. And the result is something that looks a lot more like the void than the actual void in the game. And I think this perfectly goes to show that what you can't see is infinitely more spooky than what you can. So if you're looking for a new tunnel for your next haunted house, this might be the pick come Halloween. The death and loading screens are a staple of Minecraft, and they're so commonplace that by this point, no one's surprised by them. But we can use that to our advantage. Taken after this user, we can make a giant version of the respawn screen in our creative world. And with the help of map art, we can make this even more convincing. Then, after we place these down at spawn, we can fool anyone who respawns into seeing yet another respawn screen when they least expect it, letting us watch from the sidelines and get quite the laugh while we're doing it. Walking through walls sounds like quite the superpower to have, but doing that without glitches should be impossible, or it was until this user's discovery. See, by using these immersive portals, we can give off the illusion of walking through a solid mirror. And while pulling this off might require some prior knowledge of the mod in question, as long as you light the portal properly and add in the glass, we can still walk through as planned, letting you trade places with yourself and likely leave a group of confused bystanders when you do, which is well worth trying out, trust me. I want you all to take a look at my new house. Now, it's pretty basic from this angle, but what's really interesting about it is when we step back and yeah, I think you get the point. See, the trick here for selling this illusion is by using directional blocks that we can place sideways. So then when you build your house into a wall and then look up at it, it still looks like it would on the regular floor. Granted, you have to fly up this pathway, but from first person, that's a lot less noticeable than it is in replay mod. But just make sure that you're careful when you step outside of the front door, or rather fall outside of the front door. You can't be too careful with this one. No matter where we stand, this crocodile will always be looking at us. And that's because of the illusion of depth. See, the same way that this trick works in the real world, you'll notice that when we get up close, what's happening here is that the face is hollowed out in such a way where with just a few walls, we're able to give the illusion of a turning crocodile head regardless of where we're standing. First, we're gonna need to get a creeper head, which is easier said than done. Means we have to deal with not one, but two creepers, one of them charged, and use that explosion to get our new head. But once you go through that whole rigmarole and create a noise machine like this tucked away underneath their floorboards, and every time that it sounds off, it'll play the primed creeper sound effect inside of their house, which is more than a little concerning, especially if you use something like observers to make this go off every time that they open a chest or something. They'll think there's a creeper behind them and be greeted by nothing, which seems like it would be a relief, but it's not gonna feel like one when it's happening every single time you open up a chest. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?